Companies like Zapier and Canva are infamous in the SEO community for scaling content with code, otherwise known as programmatic SEO. Today, you can do the same thing they've done, but on steroids with AI. There's no massive dev team required. In this video, I'm pulling back the curtain on the Recap's AI-powered SEO engine, a workflow that automatically generates high-ranking listicle-style blogs that drive thousands of qualified visitors every month. I'll show you exactly how it works step by step and how you can clone this same system for your own niche. Watch to the end and I'll even give you the full automation template that you can use for free. Okay, let's jump in.
All right, so here we go. We are here in n8n and we have this content agent that is tasked with creating best of listicle style content exactly like this. So this blog post here was fully generated by this content agent. And what it does is it's creating a very valuable, actually useful piece of content, analyzing, the best AI tools of a given category. And then we can scale that across the hundreds of categories that we have on AI tools. So that's the why. Hopefully that helps you understand why this could be useful for your business. Now let's jump into the actual demo.
And so let's demo this flow real quick. So we'll start out with executing the workflow, and we'll start by entering, the category that we want to build out an article for programmatically. Let's do AI art tools and graphic designers. And so those are the only inputs we need. And now the agent is going to build this content based on this programmatic workflow. So now let me cover, as it ticks through, what is happening here. So what we're going to do is start out by creating a very detailed deep research prompt. So you can see as I kicked off this flow, it's going to spit back to me in Slack a deep research prompt. So let me go grab that quick. All right, I'm back and I'm going to snag that deep research prompt you can see here. Your task is to research the provided AI art tools and prepare a report to exact specification detailed below. Yada, yada, yada. Research the best AI art tools that are included in this list. Look for information on popularity, features, community sentiment, pros, cons, notable use cases. Use reliable sources such as user discussions on Reddit, Stack Overflow, Hacker News, product review platforms. So we're giving a very detailed prompt of all the places it should research, how it should research, what it should do, output format that we want. This whole prompt is available for free in our free community, so just snag it from there. The link's in the description. And then, we allow ChatGPT to run, like a 20-minute deep research on that prompt.
All right, real quick, if you want the exact prompts and the exact template for this n8n automation that you can download and pull into your own business, you can get it completely for free by joining our school community AI Automation Mastery. Completely for free. Just click on the video that you want the automation template for. This includes all of the prompting and everything you need to recreate this for your business. Join, we'll see you there, and let's get back to the video.
And you can see here the output is a very in-depth, kind of like listicle, but way more in-depth, talking about, the best AI art tools, key features. You can see the pros, the cons, and it's a very, very in-depth research report. And so that is this first part of the n8n flow. Then we essentially pass that deep research off to what would be considered a content copywriting agent. And this agent, based on the prompting we've prompted it with, is going to write in the style, tone, authority, and diction for our brand, the Recap, or in this case, for the AI Tools site. And that's here in n8n, and it'll write section by section the content for this listicle style piece. And so here you can see this was the output for the best AI art tools. It took that deep research report, it writes the intro, little quick look sections of what is it best for, standout features, pulls all of the pricing details, and then does a deeper dive into, the tools themselves. What are they good for, bad for? What use cases are they most helpful with? And we get a very nice piece of content that is based on real user feedback, what's said about the tool, what the tool can't do, all over the entire internet. And then we push the tool to our CMS and publish it, and we output this type of content. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Lucas to actually jump into every single n8n node here, the prompts behind them, how it's built, and how you can copy it for your business.
Next, I want to take you through a deep dive of this automation where we walk through and go node by node and explain exactly how we put this entire automation together. There are going to be parts of this automation that are specific to our own business here at the recap, but by the very end of this video, you're going to have a really strong understanding of each of these core components, and you're going to be able to go forward and make changes to this automation to generate your very own SEO optimized articles. Let's get started here walking through this entire workflow. So if I zoom in here to the very first row, we see our form trigger, our first section called Construct Deep Research Prompt, and a second section called Extract Tools. Everything here is very specific to the AI Tools website and what we're trying to do here at the recap with our SEO article. I want to emphasize that this first step of building out necessary context, building the deep research prompt you want to use, and enriching that with any extra data that needs to get included in the article, this is going to be the biggest thing you need to customize for whatever article that you're trying to write. I'm going to show you exactly what we're doing for creating an article, a listicle article, that's getting the best AI sales tools found in our system. But for your own use case, it's really important that you first start off with the end vision in mind. So what kind of listicle article you're trying to build, what is that exact format you want it to look like, and then, and only then, after you have all of that end vision ready, then you can back into building up the context you need and creating a deep research prompt that's going to go out and get that information for you. So that's the very first thing I want to emphasize here. I don't think anybody else who's using this automation is going to get a ton of value out of the deep research prompt we're building and extracting the tools that exist on our AI Tools website. So that's the first thing I want to cover. Next, let's actually jump into the form trigger we have set up here. And again, this is going to be very specific to what we're building here at AI Tools. So under form elements, we can see that we're giving a text field for the category slug. And so this is going to be AI sales tools. When we go to actually run, the audience is going to be who is the target audience we're actually writing this article for. In this case, it's going to be salespeople, tech salespeople, anybody who's involved in sales. And so we'll be able to fill that in. And then finally, we have this optional value for any tool slugs we want to include in the final result. This is something that we were able to implement that gives us a little bit more steering over the final resulting article. Say, for instance, we have experience using both Clay and People AI in our own sales process. We'd be able to grab the slug value of this page, so just the value Clay there, pass it into our form, and then we know that Clay and People AI would get included in our final resulting article. So let's go forward, actually execute this workflow so you guys can see how this is going to look step by step and what data is flowing through. So category slug, we're going to grab that AI sales tools value. This is going to be for salespeople. And let's go ahead and leave this empty for now. So the deep research prompt is going to be able to go off on its own and come back to us with its own results. I'll submit that and we'll get going here. So the first two nodes to cover are going to be fetch category and fetch category tools. These are two API calls we're actually making out to our own API on aitools.inc. So if I click this, blow it up here in the new tab, we can see all of this data that's getting returned to us is actually data that lives inside our own content management system. So this is going to be super important context for us to, add internal links, make sure that we're pulling in the right details for the right tool. All really important context we're going to build up and format later down the road in a friendly way to pass into an LLM. In a similar vein, under fetch category tools, we're going to be making a similar API call to our own content management system called Sanity. This is where we store all of our tools, and it gives us a nice endpoint that allows us to easily query the system to get all of that tool data back, all the metadata for the tool, and be able to build out nice, clean internal links on our final article. So that's the first part of the process. Again, I want to emphasize this. This is going to look very different on your own automation. For example, if you run an e-commerce store, like a Shopify store, and you're wanting to build a listicle of all of your top products, maybe this first part is an API call to Shopify to build up that context or competitors' products, so you could do a comparison side by side of what your products versus your competitors actually look like. So that covers it for the first two fetch calls to go out to the AI Tools API. Going forward here, we have a set field node just to provide the category tools in a clean array. Nothing too fancy here, but we can see that all of our tools under the sales category on the AI Tools website are brought in here. So we can see our slug, our title, what's the website of the tool, and a brief description that we have saved that is going to match what we have on the page itself. Going forward into the next part, this is going to be internal to our workflow here at AI Tools, but we use Slack heavily to manage this process. And so from this node where we create this JSON file all the way over to this step where we share the research prompt and weight, what we're going to be doing is loading this context into a file, uploading that to Slack, building a prompt that we're going to pass off to OpenAI's deep research system, and also put that into a file. So all of that context gets bundled together nicely, and then will get shared in a Slack message for us just to copy and paste into deep research. Next up, I want to show you guys the human in the loop process that we're following here after we share this deep research prompt. So if I open up this node, we are using this operation called send and wait for response, which basically means that the automation is going to post this message here in Slack with a button called add result, and it's going to wait for us to actually click this and paste back in the result of this deep research prompt that was just built up for us before it continues with the rest of the steps in our automation to write the article. So this is perfect for us because we don't want to do this research on our own, and we want to leverage what OpenAI's built with their deep research agent, so we can take those results and get all of that information incorporated into our final article. So let's kick that off right now. If I go over to Slack, I can see this latest message was shared here for our best AI sales tool article, and we have the prompt file and a tools JSON file for all the sales tools extracted from our system. So let's go ahead and download both of these now. I'll get the file for the prompt and the file for our tools JSON list. If I come up here, we can see both of these, and I will go ahead and copy this prompt over into OpenAI, make sure that deep research is selected inside here, and I do need to make sure that I actually am including the JSON file of all the tools that exist in our system. For the prompt we've built out, it's very important that we have both of these included because we're calling out this list exactly in the prompt itself. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off, and I'll be back once this finishes up. All right, so I'm back here in ChatGPT, and we can see our deep research report has completely finished up with a ton of content around the breakdown of the best AI sales tools. This is exactly what we want, and it gives us the full report of all of the top 8 tools, along with a tool ID inside our system that we're going to be able to take forward and push through the rest of our workflow. So as a next step, what I'm going to do is quickly copy all of this report, jump back to Slack, add a result, and we're going to be able to paste this entire report in to continue with our automation. So I'm going to submit this, and if we switch back over to our automation, we can see that this node for sharing research prompt and weight has finished up, and we're going to continue down the list. So up next, we're going to actually run a extraction prompt that is going to look through that entire report and work to extract all of the tools in our system by getting the tool ID, the slug, and the name, and a clean, easy to read list for us to later do processing on. Let's move down now to the next couple of sections on the automation and go through them node by node. In these next sections, we're going to cover the process of going forward and creating the content that is going to get published to our blog. We're going to get into writing the intro, writing the ranking criteria content, writing the full body content of the blog post, and finally writing at the conclusion. Let's zoom in here to the right intro section to see everything going on. The first thing we're going to be doing here is writing the meta description and the description of the article that is going to get wired up to our CMS. If we jump back over to our best AI sales tool article, this is going to be this brief sentence here that is shared and will appear in the search engine result page on our published article. So a super important part of the content we need to create, and it's important we get it right. If I blow this up, we can see that we have our full prompt here that sets up our task we're trying to accomplish, passes in a good example, and gives a little bit more criteria on things we need to avoid in this description and blacklists some words. The other important thing to call out is going to be the dynamic content that we pass in for the category we're writing about. So if I briefly jump into the task here, we're going to be writing a clear, concise, and compelling meta description for the best templated title of our category. So the best AI sales tool page on the AI tools website. This is going to be consistent across all the prompts that we use by taking that context we've built up in the earlier nodes and passing that through all of the other content we're trying to create. Same thing here with the research report. After we pasted in the details of that research report from ChatGPT Deep Research, we want to have access to that full report and everything else we're doing when it comes to writing the SEO optimized article. So if we scroll down here, we can see that our templated expression here is going to set the title again of our category. And then below here at the very bottom, we have this entire report created from ChatGPT that's going to be used and evaluated for our blog post. That all looks good here. And we can see at the very end, we have our structured output set up to give a resulting meta description, which appears on the webpage, and the chain of thought tokens that were used when actually drafting out this description. If you want to see how that's set up, I'm going to be using a meta description parser and the auto parser here, both wired up to it to make sure that this is not going to fail on us as we're deep into running this full automation. So when I expand this, we can then see how we have our chain of thought tokens like I was displayed before, and the resulting meta description, which is simply a string we want to be outputted from the result of this prompt. That covers everything we need to get that meta description in a clean, easy to read format for later processing. Next here in the intro is going to be actually the prompt we're using to build out and write the full introduction. Very similar to the meta description prompt, we're going to be following a similar structure where we define the role and the task. We're going to be building out more details about the target audience and expanding more on our objectives, the desired style and tone, and really getting more into what constraints we have in place for the length and format. This is something that is going to be a bit bigger piece of content. What we're doing is writing these 2 paragraphs here. And with the longer that the content we're trying to generate gets, we found that it really helps to get more specific and provide more examples and more of those constraints in the prompts that we're building out. Let's get back into n8n and move on to this next section called Write Ranking Criteria Content. Looking at the blog post itself, this is going to be the next paragraph in our blog that's giving an overview of what truly makes the best AI sales tool. This is something that we specifically prompted for and included in our deep research prompt so that either Google Gemini Deep Research or ChatGPT Deep Research would be able to come back to us with this criteria that it used to truly evaluate every single tool underneath this category and pick out the best ones. This is super helpful context to include on the post that we're actually writing, as it gives more details about the evaluation process. So let's jump over to n8n and build this out. Really simple here on the automation itself. If I blow this up, we're going to do a very similar prompting process as to before. You may be noticing a pattern here. We're going to provide the category details we want to write about. We're going to set up the role and purpose that the task is going to be performing. And finally, give more details about the voice style, different examples that should follow, and really drill into the content requirements we're expecting as output of this LLM call. I won't go through every part of this, but All prompts will be included if you join our AI community called AI Automation Mastery. Be sure to click on that very first link in the description of the video below, and you'll be able to get access to everything you see here. Let's now move forward to the meat of the content for this article, which is going to be this section that writes the body content for every single tool. If I zoom into here, we can see that we have a couple of data cleanup nodes where we're going to set the tools we want to process. So basically just building out a clean array of every single tool that was extracted from that deep research report. We're going to go from that single list to 8 separate items by using a split out node on that tool field from before. And finally, for each of those 8 tools that we've split out, we're going to go ahead and use this LLM call to build out and write the full tool content we need for our blog post. And so if I come back to the blog post and scroll down, we can see that this is going to be the output here of this section. So we'll get a title for the section. We're going to get our tool that was selected. We'll get an intro paragraph that covers why it was selected, a breakdown of the pros and cons for the tool, and finally close out with a best use cases bulleted list that gives all of those use cases. This is going to be the formula that every single tool we're evaluating and processing here follows, but this is something that you can customize and tweak for your ideal end content. Again, I want to go back to what I said in the beginning. It's very important when you're building an automation like this, you're starting with the end result vision in mind and then working up backwards from there. In order to do this, we like to go brick by brick and very small prompts so we can easily piece all of this data together with our intro, our ranking criteria content, the body content, and finally the conclusion before we get that single piece of content. We find that it makes it really simple to break things up this way. Let's go back here to the LLM call so we can see a little bit more of what this output data looks like. So once again, for each tool that we're processing and passing through this part of our automation, we'll get that tool content that I was mentioning earlier, as well as a couple of other details we're going to extract, such as the tool name, the best for phrase, standout features for the tool, as well as a brief description of the pricing. This is something that also gets used in our blog post and gets put into this at a glance section where we break down everything tool by tool. Moving forward here in the workflow, after this LLM call finishes up for every tool selected, all we have to do is use this aggregate node to put all of that output together back into this tool content list that contains everything we created, and we can pass that through into the conclusion. This is going to be the last piece of content we need to generate before we can bundle up all of this output and push it off to our CMS. So I'll briefly jump into this, look at the prompt here, and we can see, once again, we're following a very similar format where we set up the category, give a bit of context about what the purpose of this LLM call is, share a bit more about the target audience since this will be a full paragraph we're writing, and then drill into more context that needs to get dynamically passed in. Let's exit out of this and see how we can now pass this content off into our CMS and actually publish the final tool blog post. Let's close out here by walking through this very last section called Push to Sanity. All of this code and all these nodes that you see here are extremely customized for AI tools. Sanity is the CMS that we're using to store all of our editorial content that you see on the site, such as the listing pages or this new article that we just wrote. So we have to use the Sanity API to push that content in the format that they need. In your system, it's likely you're using something different like WordPress, Webflow, or some other CMS. And so how you build this final few nodes out is going to largely depend on what's needed for those systems. So in our case, what we're going to do is use this custom code block to prepare all of the tool content we were working through earlier. And so we're going to extract all of the tool content in a list. We're going to split those tools out and then loop over everything to get the tool ID, the tool name, the best for phrase, standout features, the pricing, and finally the tool content, the rich text content we generated for this article in the format we're expecting. If you're working with WordPress or something else, you're probably going to be doing something drastically different than we are. And so it makes sense to read the docs and have a really strong understanding how that data needs to end up. In AI tools, As we go forward, we're going to take that list, aggregate them all together into a single data field, and finally push that data off with an API call into our own system that is talking to Sanity's API. And so this is going to be something you can drop in. You're going to have to really integrate with whatever CMS you're using if you want to follow the same path we did. As an alternative, you can also do some kind of data transformation or data processing here, maybe with a set field node. So you can then see a single markdown output text field that you can copy and paste into, maybe the WordPress editor or the Webflow editor. So really, this final step here is going to depend on what your requirements are and what your business case actually looks like.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at The Recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.